Lorenzo stood quietly at the back of the presentation hall in Geneva as Kurt, a well-known Swiss architect, laughed at the slide showing a bamboo bridge from the Philippines. "This is charming," Kurt said, smirking, "but bamboo is for huts, not real load-bearing structures." The room chuckled with him. Lorenzo kept his face steady, but inside, something sharp twisted. He knew the design they mocked was not primitive. It was the result of years of Filipino research. Amira, standing beside Lorenzo, whispered, "Let them laugh first." She watched the architect's scribble notes, already dismissing the bridge as a failed experiment. Neither she nor Lorenzo planned to argue that day. They only needed one thing: the official approval to let the Swiss team perform the stress tests they demanded. Once the numbers spoke, the mockery would have nowhere left to hide. Back in Manila, Lorenzo and Amira inspected the bamboo prototype before shipping it to Europe. The structure was light but firm, each joint tightened with laminated fiber and resin developed in local labs. The design borrowed from Filipino traditions and combined them with modern reinforcement techniques. These were lessons learned from storms, floods, and decades of rebuilding. Lorenzo ran his hand across the polished beams. "This bridge survived typhoons and the simulation," he said softly. Amira nodded. "Let's see if it can survive arrogance, too." They both knew this test would not measure just strength. It would measure respect for Filipino engineering. When the bridge reached Zurich's testing center, Kurt inspected it with a mocking smile. "It looks handmade," he said to Henrik. "We'll push it until it cracks." Henrik nodded, already convinced of the outcome. None of them believed bamboo deserved a seat in modern engineering discussions. But the technicians who unpacked the structure paused. The connections were clean, the curvature was precise, and the bamboo, layered, treated, and compressed, felt stronger than anything they expected. "Primitive?" one whispered. "This is crafted." Henrik heard it but brushed it aside. His mind was already set. On the morning of the test, cameras were set up. Reporters gathered ready to witness a spectacular failure, as one headline predicted. Kurt rehearsed the phrases he would use when the bridge collapsed, words like unfit, unsafe, and symbolic of outdated design. Lorenzo and Amira stood quietly in the corner, watching the Swiss engineers attach sensors along the beams. They ignored the cold glances and the doubtful murmurs. The air was heavy with expectation. But for the first time since the mockery, Lorenzo felt something different: calm. He trusted the science behind the craftsmanship. As the weights were applied, the bamboo arch flexed gently, absorbing the load with surprising grace. The Swiss technicians frowned at the monitors. "It's stable," one muttered. Kurt forced a smile and said, "Increase the pressure. Bamboo bends before it breaks." The pressure rose again. The bridge held. The reading stayed within safe limits. But more importantly, the bridge adjusted, distributing stress like a living structure. Amira whispered, "That's the Filipino way. We bend, not break." Lorenzo allowed himself a small smile. When the load reached levels used for steel tests, the bamboo bridge still stood firm. Henrik's eyebrows tightened as he compared the data. Nothing aligned with their predictions. The structure behaved like a composite material, not a fragile plant. "This is not normal," Henrik said. "Run it again." The technicians repeated the process. Same result, same surprising resilience. Kurt's confidence began to crack as fast as he expected the bridge to. Frustrated, Kurt ordered maximum load. "If this bridge wants to pretend it's advanced, let's test it like one." Gasps filled the room as they exceeded the limit typically used for bamboo studies. The bridge trembled, but stabilized again. The technicians stared in disbelief. "This is not possible," one said softly. For the first time, people approached the structure not with mockery, but with respect. Lorenzo watched them touch the beams like students discovering something new. The final stress reached levels meant for high-grade steel prototypes. Everyone held their breath. Instead of snapping, the bamboo absorbed the strain. A loud beep came from the monitor. Structure remains intact. Kurt's face drained of color. Henrik sat down slowly. "We mocked this," he whispered, "but it outperformed half of our own." The room was silent, stunned not only by the result, but by their earlier arrogance. Reporters who expected failure now had the opposite story. Videos of the bamboo bridge holding extreme weight spread online. Headlines flipped overnight. Filipino design shocks European engineers. The world now questioned why a structure this strong was mocked in the first place. Lorenzo didn't celebrate. He simply said, "This is not about winning, this is about being seen." Amira added, "and being respected." Their calm response made the victory even louder. Inside a closed meeting, Henrik faced pressure from the board. They questioned how their team could misjudge the Filipino design so badly. Kurt tried to defend himself, saying bamboo was never meant for modern loads, but the data proved him wrong. The board demanded transparency. Why did bias cloud their judgment? Why did they assume Filipino materials were inferior? For the first time, it wasn't the bridge under scrutiny, it was their attitude. Henrik sent a formal apology to Lorenzo and Amira. It was brief, but sincere, acknowledging their error in dismissing Filipino engineering. "We judged your work before testing it," he wrote. "That was unscientific and unprofessional." Lorenzo read the letter quietly. Amira said, "This is rare. Take it as a step forward, not a trophy." And that was exactly how they approached it, grateful but grounded. Architects worldwide began discussing the test results. Conferences questioned why Western institutions often dismiss innovations from smaller nations. Critics said this incident exposed how bias shaped research priorities. The bamboo bridge became a symbol, not of nationalism, but of fairness. Engineers from Asia, Africa, and South America said the same thing. Sometimes we don't lack skill, we lack recognition. The conversation shook the industry. When Lorenzo and Amira returned to Manila, students and local builders greeted them like heroes, not because they beat Europe, but because they proved Filipino science deserved a seat in global discussions. Farmers who supplied the bamboo sent them bundles wrapped with ribbons. Amira smiled at them. "Your harvest built that bridge." And in that moment, the success felt shared, not just for two engineers, but for everyone behind them. Weeks later, Henrik flew to Manila to meet Lorenzo and Amira. He asked permission to collaborate on new hybrid material studies based on Filipino bamboo reinforcement techniques. His tone had changed completely. Humble, respectful. Lorenzo agreed, but only under one condition. "This time, we stand as equals." Henrik nodded. "This time, we learn from you." The partnership marked a new chapter for both sides. Months after the test, the bamboo bridge became a permanent exhibit. Visitors came from everywhere, students, architects, researchers, wanting to understand how something once mocked became a global lesson in humility and innovation. Lorenzo stood before it one evening, feeling the quiet weight of victory. Amira joined him and said, "We didn't build a bridge to prove them wrong. We built a bridge to show what's possible." And as the lights reflected on the bamboo beams, it became clear the world was finally listening.